Love him or hate him, Paddy Pimblett is impossible to ignore. His wild personality, flashy finishes, and unapologetic attitude have made him one of the UFC's biggest stars.
No, I mean, I thought he was a goofy-looking guy with a silly haircut.
But behind the viral moments and post-fight feasts is a storm of controversy that no one saw coming.
He gets the tap! The Paddy party goes to the
That was a close one.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't close.
From Liverpool prospect to one of the most polarizing figures in MMA today,
I'm a Scouser. We don't get knocked out.
Do you twerk over him if he gets
I'm gonna teabag him, lad. I'm gonna teabag him like it's Modern Warfare 2.
this is Paddy the Baddy's story. Paddy was born in 1995 in Huyton, a working-class suburb of Liverpool where loyalty means everything, and people tell it like it is. Growing up in that environment gave Paddy a scrappy, no-nonsense attitude, something that would define him. School was never his thing. He went to a Catholic high school, where teachers quickly realized he wasn't cut out for the whole sit still and listen routine. Paddy had energy to burn and a rebellious streak that didn't mesh with structure. By 15, school was an afterthought and MMA had taken over his life.
What's your name?
Paddy Pimblett.
Okay, do you have a fight nickname?
My coach calls me Paddy The Baddy Pimblett.
Paddy The Baddy.
Back then, MMA wasn't the go-to career path for anyone, but for Paddy, all it took was 2 fights to change everything. He randomly caught UFC 103, watching Rich Franklin and Vitor Belfort go at it. Something about the raw intensity of the fight had him hooked. Then, not long after, he watched Diego Sanchez versus Clay Guida, a 3-round brawl that would later be inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. That was the moment it clicked. By 16, he was all in on MMA. Then an opportunity landed in his lap. A teammate pulled out of a local bout, and Paddy's coach asked if he wanted to step in. With little prep, he said yes. That debut kicked off a 3-0 amateur run, where his aggressive grappling and unpredictable striking style made him stand out. His professional debut in 2012 was a first-round TKO. Paddy racked up a few more wins before signing with Cage Warriors in 2013. He leaned into his personality. The wild haircut, cocky interviews, and relentless self-belief made him a fan favorite. Paddy was building a following. Even though he won his debut at Cage Warriors 60, he met his first real taste of adversity. It was a brutal loss. 35 seconds into the fight, Paddy was caught in an anaconda choke and put to sleep. For most 18-year-olds, a loss like that would be crippling. But for Paddy, it only pissed him off in the best way possible. In 2015, he took 2 more fights and finished both off in the first round. One by triangle armbar,
big submission win.
and the other by doctor stoppage after a brutal elbow.
Oh, a huge elbow.
Wow, he has cut him bad with that elbow strike at the end of the round.
In 2016, his momentum was undeniable. He stacked up 2 more dominant wins,
That's Paddy, what Paddy does so well.
earning a shot at the vacant featherweight title against Johnny Fraggi. Paddy finished him in 90 seconds and became the new champion. His confidence was sky high. At this point, he was a superstar.
From Liverpool's own, Paddy Pimblett.
His wild personality, fearless fighting style, and massive fan base made him one of Cage Warriors' biggest attractions. But a true champion has to defend the belt, and a few months later, Paddy faced his first major test, former UFC fighter Julian Erosa. This fight would go down as one of the most controversial decisions in Cage Warriors history. It was a war, a back-and-forth battle. Paddy retained by unanimous decision, but the MMA world exploded. Fans were convinced Erosa won. The backlash was immediate, and people started questioning if Paddy was really all that. Not only that, but he had one of the most bizarre post-fight interviews in MMA history. Running on pure adrenaline, Paddy started speaking and suddenly vomited mid-sentence.
That's right, can we have a...
The dark, sludgy mess hit the canvas, and of course, everyone was shocked. People initially thought that it was blood, but the truth was even weirder. Paddy cleared things up on Instagram, explaining what he spew out was hot chocolate and Ferrero Rocher. Yup, in what might be the least advisable pre-fight nutrition plan in sports history.
It wasn't blood. I just didn't listen to anyone at the time and drank a hot chocolate and Ferrero Rocher on the way to the venue. It just come out all brown, looked red on the YouTube, so everyone's like, he's puke blood. I still get asked about that now on Twitter and that.
Paddy, who had just gone through a brutal weight cut, decided to reward himself with a feast of rich chocolate and a warm drink right before stepping into the cage. Paddy's weight cut had been a disaster. He missed the featherweight limit on his first attempt and had to shed 2 pounds in 2 hours. Fighters routinely drain themselves to make weight and dehydrate their bodies to extreme levels before rehydrating after the weigh-in. It shouldn't come as a surprise that your body doesn't love it when you flood it with sugar and dairy after being on the brink of starvation. The result was a ruined microphone and an instantly iconic moment. But hey, at least he was still the champ. But if anyone thought Paddy would get an easy ride as champion, they were about to be proven wrong. His next opponent was a hungry challenger, and in a stunning upset, Paddy lost his title by decision. He got outworked in both striking and grappling exchanges. No controversy, he lost fair and square. For the first time in his career, Paddy wasn't on top. He later called it his lowest point, saying he'd wake up crying, thinking his career was over. For Paddy, fighting was about proving himself to his fans, doubters, and himself. And that's when he made a big decision. It was time to move up to lightweight. Exactly on the 155-pound limit, Paddy made his lightweight debut in 2018. And what better way to make a statement than with a flying triangle choke submission in round 2.
He's got the angle, he's got the exception! And there's the submission! Paddy the Baddy is back!
Paddy was back, and his fan base was bigger than ever. Even the UFC took notice and came knocking with a contract. But Paddy said no, twice. At a time when most fighters would have killed for a UFC deal, Paddy walked away because he knew his worth. In MMA, when the big leagues call, you answer. That first UFC contract is supposed to be a golden ticket every young fighter dreams of. But in 2016, fresh off winning the Cage Warriors featherweight title in front of a roaring Liverpool crowd, Paddy got his first UFC offer and turned it down. His reasons were simple. Cage Warriors paid more. At 21, Paddy was playing a different game. While most fighters would have jumped at the chance to fight in the UFC for the name value, he chose money over prestige. Cage Warriors doubled down on him. He was their star. The electric energy in the arena every time he fought, he was their McGregor 2.0. They set up a massive fight, Paddy versus Soran Bak, for the vacant lightweight title. The hype was unreal. Paddy was fighting to cement himself as a double champion, and early on, it looked like he had it. Within the first round, Paddy took Bak's back and nearly finished him. The crowd erupted, but somehow Bak survived, and after that, Paddy had no answers. For the next 4 rounds, Bak dominated both grappling and striking, controlling the pace and shutting down Paddy's offense. By the end, there was no controversy. Bak won decisively. Suddenly, that UFC contract he rejected twice was no longer guaranteed. But despite the setback, Paddy had an uncanny ability to bounce back. His last 2 Cage Warriors fights ended in spectacular first-round finishes, putting him in the perfect position to get picked up by the UFC. The third time was the charm. At this point, Paddy was the biggest personality signing since Conor, and the UFC knew it. Paddy was UFC bound, and in his 2021 debut, with the media hyping him up and fans rallying behind him, he had to deliver. Paddy faced Luigi Vendramini. It was supposed to be a showcase, a chance for Paddy to introduce himself to the UFC audience with a statement win. But things nearly went south. Early on, Luigi rocked Paddy with a left hook.
Yeah, dude, that jab with his chin up in the air.
Sending him stumbling. The O2 Arena let out a collective gasp. He took some follow-up shots, ground and pound, and for a second, it looked like Paddy's fairy tale was over before it started. But in classic Paddy fashion, he flipped the script. He stormed back, throwing a relentless flurry of punches that overwhelmed Luigi. Minutes after nearly being stopped, Paddy put him away with a first-round knockout. The crowd erupted. The performance earned him a $50,000 bonus and put the entire roster on notice. Paddy the Baddy had arrived. Just 1 month later, business started rolling in. He signed a massive $1 million sponsorship deal with Barstool Sports. But here's the wild part. For all the hype surrounding him, Paddy was making less per fight in the UFC than he had been in Cage Warriors. His UFC debut paid him just $10,000 to show and another $10,000 to win. It was an absurdly low figure for one of the sport's most talked about newcomers. But Paddy didn't care. He knew the real money would come, and he was right. The real payday came outside the cage anyway. The brand deals, the exposure, the fame. This was exactly why he waited. He joined the UFC at the right time to capitalize. Paddy's next opportunity came 6 months later at UFC London in March 2022. And as soon as he stepped into the O2 Arena, it was clear this was his house. Paddy was the star of the show, but he wasn't rising alone. Meatball Molly McCann was already a few years into her UFC career when Paddy made his debut. They had forged a bond over a decade at Next Generation MMA in Liverpool. They were more than training partners, they were family. Molly, who's 4 years older, calls Paddy her little big brother, always looking out for him. That night in London, both had career-defining moments. First, Molly sent the arena into a frenzy. This was the third time ever in the history of the UFC someone had finished a fight with a spinning back elbow. Molly had joined a very exclusive list, and her knockout went viral, getting over 15 million views within 48 hours. Hours later, Paddy fed off that energy and submitted Rodrigo Vargas in the first round with a rear naked choke. As soon as he won, Molly leaped into the cage to celebrate. In that moment, their friendship became a UFC marketing goldmine. The event grossed over $4.5 million, setting a UK record for combat sports. Their performances were amplified by a raucous home crowd, with celebrities like Anthony Joshua and Wayne Rooney in attendance, proving their crossover appeal. The UFC wasted no time capitalizing on their chemistry. The duo became a package deal, headlining press tours, selling out arenas, and bringing a different kind of energy to Fight Week. Paddy and Molly's fanbase was exploding, and so was their confidence. Their social media packages skyrocketed, and the UFC knew exactly what they had on their hands. Two fighters who could draw and sell out arenas, especially in the UK. So 4 months later, they did what you should do when things work well: run it back. In July, Paddy and Molly fought in London again. But they couldn't possibly recapture the magic of that first London event, right? Molly fought Hannah Goldie. Despite Goldie's defensive adjustments early on, Molly capitalized on a clinch break in the second round. As Goldie retreated, Molly did the unthinkable. She dropped her with a clean spinning back elbow, identical to the one a few months earlier. Molly became the first fighter in UFC history to secure 2 spinning back elbow knockouts, let alone in back-to-back bouts. Like the first one, this went viral, and the official highlight reel surpassed 10 million views in a day. A few hours later, Paddy fought Jordan Levy, a quirky, unorthodox grappler with an undefeated UFC record. Paddy was confident as ever, claiming he'd knock out and twerk on him after. And as the fight started, Jordan held his own, winning early grappling exchanges. But once Paddy found his rhythm, he took control. In the second round, Paddy landed a huge knee, dragged Jordan to the mat, and locked in a rear naked choke, forcing him to tap. Paddy won again, and he delivered on his promise. He teabagged Jordan in celebration. The crowd exploded as Rogan called him a superstar. But it was Paddy's post-fight speech that made headlines worldwide.
I want to dedicate this fight to little baby Lee, little warrior. Like, more of a fighter than any of us will ever be. But also, I woke up on Friday morning at 4 AM to a message that one of my friends back home had killed himself.
Instead of boasting about his win, he took a different approach. His voice cracked with emotion as he delivered a message about men's mental health.
There's a stigma in this world that men can't talk. Listen, if you're a man and you've got weight on your shoulders and you think the only way you can solve it's by killing yourself, please speak to someone. Speak to anyone.
Revealing that a close friend had taken his life days before, the arena fell silent. For all the controversy and chaos that followed Paddy everywhere he went, this was different. It was bigger than sports. The clip went viral, gaining millions of views, and turning Paddy into a symbol of mental health awareness. That's not an exaggeration. His speech prompted a surge in crisis hotline calls across northern England. His win was overshadowed by his message. In the best way possible, it was Paddy's finest moment. Molly and Paddy had become viral sensations. The UFC capitalized on their authenticity. Promos emphasized Molly's background as a former pizza shop worker and Paddy's self-deprecating humor about weight fluctuations between fights. This every-person narrative endeared them to fans. Paddy's social media presence played a huge role. His YouTube channel amassed hundreds of thousands of subscribers, offering fans a glimpse into his life. But not everyone was convinced of his skills. He hadn't fought any ranked fighters yet, and soon the love-hate dynamic that would define his career started to creep in. Before we get to Paddy's next bout, we have to talk about something that's followed him his entire career: his weight. Paddy doesn't just gain a few extra pounds between bouts. He bloats up to 200 pounds, nearly 50 pounds over the lightweight limit. The UFC brass isn't thrilled about it. Dana White has put it bluntly, stating that obviously it's not good for someone's body to fluctuate and cut that much weight. And it's not just a health concern, it makes scheduling bouts a nightmare. Dana explained that they can't put him in a bout within a month if there's an emergency, because he's nowhere near 155 pounds. Paddy didn't seem to care much. When asked about it, he would reply, "I'm fat and happy."
See the pizza in front of you, but do you ever miss the six-pack when you blow up between fights?
I'd rather be fat and happy than ripped, and like these people who are ripped all year round aren't happy. I'm not arsed. I don't care what they say. This six-pack's sound, I look great, but I'd rather be fat and happy.
In later interviews though, he admitted his eating habits are a problem, and he might have an eating disorder. He claims that if there's food, he'll eat, even when he's full. His weight swings became so extreme that fight camps started focusing more on cutting weight than improving. He explained that severe weight cuts trigger starvation mode, causing his body to retain water aggressively when reintroduced to sodium. Despite moving up to lightweight to ease the strain, the weight issues didn't stop. He claimed that after every bout, he started eating 8,000 calories a day. His nutritionist confirmed that during fight camps, Paddy strictly followed a 1,400 to 1,700 calorie diet, but outside of camp, he went on food binges until 2024 when a health scare forced him to rethink everything. Doctors warned him that these extreme fluctuations could wreck his metabolism, increase his risk of diabetes, heart disease, and joint damage, and cut years off his career. A 2024 scan showed he dropped from 28% body fat post-fight to 12% during camp. A massive swing that puts his hormones under severe stress, and the effects were already showing, as his cardio suffered in the later rounds of fights like this next one. Still unranked, Paddy was given the chance to prove himself against Jared Gordon. Paddy was extremely confident heading in, predicting a first-round stoppage, but when the fight began, things didn't go as planned. For the first time in his UFC career, Paddy was being outworked. Gordon landed clean shots, controlled the cage, and dictated the pace. Paddy ate punch after punch, and by the end, it seemed obvious Gordon won. He landed 58 significant strikes versus Paddy's 48. He had over 7 minutes of control time versus Paddy's 2. But then the judges gave Paddy the decision. The fallout was brutal. Every analyst from DC to Rogan and Paddy's countryman Bisping agreed he lost. Out of 24 scores by the media, 23 called Gordon the winner. In an X-poll asking the fans who won, 80% thought it was Gordon. The backlash was immediate, with many calling it the biggest robbery of the year.
Do you think he got robbed in the Paddy fight?
I do. You're winning a great fight, And then all of a sudden he took the third round to go, I'm going to just hug and hold and just be safe and just win that way. Nuh-uh, see? I'm trying to get these.
And mentioning how Paddy's hype train had just derailed. As Rogan approached Paddy for the post-fight interview, he gave him the perfect opportunity to be gracious.
You don't think it was a close fight at all?
Not at all. I won the first 2 rounds and then coasted in the third. I knew I was 2 rounds up, so I didn't want to do nothing dangerous and risk losing the fight.
But instead of handling the situation with humility, Paddy doubled down and refused to acknowledge he lost. Demanding fight of the night as he walked off the octagon definitely didn't help his case.
How did anyone think he won that fight? Do you win fights off getting punched in the face?
He landed some big shots and you showed you've got a chin, and sometimes your chin's a little bit high as well.
Yeah, it is. My chin is. I am. No one's ever going to tell me to change it. My coaches try and get me to put my chin down, but that's my style. You know what I mean? I like being in exciting fights.
In the post-fight press conference, Paddy continued to insist he won easily. Terms like overrated and hype job were trending online. Everyone highlighted the UFC's role in fast-tracking Paddy's stardom despite untested competition. The discrepancy between his marketability and skill became a focal point, with reporters like Brett Okamoto noting the UFC built a star before building a contender. Paddy's hype train derailed in 1 week. The Gordon bout exposed him. For the first time, he saw a massive drop in popularity as thousands of fans unfollowed him. It wasn't the loss, it was his inability to take criticism. His arrogance, once seen as confidence, now looked like delusion. This was very similar to the trajectory of another former Cage Warriors champion with an endearing accent from the British Isles. But I can't quite remember who. Scrutiny always follows attention. After her and Paddy's controversial end to 2022, Molly McCann lost to Yulia Stoliarenko in July of 2023. Molly's hype faded after back-to-back losses, and many critics pointed out how their rise had been overblown. The duo, once internet darlings, found themselves at the center of life's ruthless cycle. 1 minute you're loved, and the next you're hated. After what many call the biggest robbery in UFC history, Paddy took time off due to an ankle injury. After Paddy admitted to gaining more than 40 pounds after the bout, Dana, who was initially a supporter, publicly criticized him, stating that you can't balloon up between bouts and expect to be taken seriously.
Fluctuation. He said he was 200 pounds on Saturday night. What do you make of the fact that he blows up and blows down in between fights?
It's not good for you, you know. I mean, we all know that. We know that fluctuating and cutting that much weight is very bad, and it definitely doesn't prolong your career.
With no fights booked, no media appearances, and a negative reputation, Paddy had a huge PR problem. He later recognized that the online hate got to him, claiming he was the low-hanging fruit for a year. It was clear that his next bout was make or break. After a year away, Paddy was fighting the one and only Tony Ferguson at UFC 296. This was a desperate move by the UFC. Paddy was put against an aging legend, who was on a 6-bout losing streak. Even Paddy himself recognized that if he won, people would just say that Tony was already finished. And while a win was better than a loss, it didn't do much for his reputation. Paddy dominated a shell of Tony Ferguson, winning by decision. But this time around, he learned a lesson and gave a humble post-fight interview.
An absolute legend, though. Everyone give a round of applause this year for Tony Ferguson.
Fans appreciated the humility, so much so that Paddy regained 300,000 followers, a sign that people were willing to give him another chance. His next fight was at UFC 304 in July against the veteran Bobby Green. Paddy silenced the doubters with a first-round arm triangle choke, submitting Bobby and earning a $200,000 performance bonus. Outside the cage in 2024, Paddy donated $25,000 to a suicide prevention charity, funding treatment for 10 men in Liverpool. But the thing with Paddy is, for every wholesome moment, trouble follows. By the beginning of this year, Paddy had already built a reputation as one of the most polarizing figures in the UFC. But when footage surfaced of him choking an opponent unconscious in a gym brawl, things reached a whole new level. The drama started with an online feud between Paddy and MMA fighter Dennis Frempong. Words were exchanged, egos flared. And next thing you know, Paddy showed up at Dennis's gym for a friendly sparring session. It didn't stay friendly for long though. In the video, Paddy locked in a rear naked choke, and even after Dennis tapped, he didn't let go. Seconds passed, Dennis went limp, and the internet exploded. It was a cheap shot and a bad look for him. Paddy brushed it off, saying it was just adrenaline and that he never meant to take it that far. But this was just another example of his ego getting in the way. And yet, despite the controversy, his UK supporters stood by him. A sentiment analysis from this year showed that while international fans are turning on him, his core audience still sees him as a symbol of Scouse pride. Legends like DC were questioning Paddy's top 15 ranking, given he'd only fought one ranked opponent and most people thought he lost. On the other hand, guys like Bisping argued that his marketability revitalizes the lightweight division, drawing casual viewers to the product. Many people were wondering if Paddy's star power had dimmed for good, arguing that he was just a fun mid-tier fighter and not a future champion. When he stepped into the cage at UFC 314, people were still calling him an overrated loudmouth scouser. Across from him was none other than Michael Chandler, a former Bellator champion and one of the most explosive lightweights on the planet. If Paddy was all talk, Chandler was the guy to expose him. Round 1 was all Chandler. He rushed Paddy with takedowns, cage control, and relentless pace. It looked like Paddy was in over his head. But then came round 2, and something changed. Paddy stopped backing up and started reading Chandler. He was slipping shots and tagging him with clean counters. He even took Chandler's back and nearly locked in a choke. The crowd and commentary team were electric. Then a flying knee cracked Chandler wide open. There was blood everywhere, and Paddy smelled it, literally and figuratively. He mounted Chandler, raining down elbows and fists like a man possessed. A round 3 finish for the Scouser, the biggest win of his career. Paddy the Baddy arrived in the top 10 with a sledgehammer. He went from unranked to undeniable. At 30, Paddy still has time to prove himself. But what do you think? Does Paddy have what it takes to become champion, or is he a journeyman? Well, if there's another man with whom UFC fans have had a love and hate relationship with over the years, it's Adesanya. Learn more about Izzy's rise and fall in the UFC by clicking the video on the screen. I'll see you there.